The morning was colder than usual, and the wind moved through the streets like it had no mercy. People hurried along the sidewalks, wrapping scarves around their necks and holding coffee cups for warmth. Among them was a young woman named Lily. She worked in a small marketing office across town and always caught the 8:15 subway. Her mornings were fast, like she was racing the clock every day. That morning, she stopped at a cafe near the station, the one she visited almost every day. The air inside was warm and smelled of roasted coffee beans. She smiled at the barista, ordered her usual latte, and reached into her coat pocket for her wallet. She didn't notice that the pocket zipper was slightly open. After paying, she picked up her drink, slid the wallet back into her coat, and rushed out the door, already checking her phone to see what emails had arrived overnight. The cafe door swung shut behind her. As she stepped outside, her wallet slipped from her pocket and landed on the cold pavement, just beside a bench. People walked past, their eyes fixed on their phones or the ground, too busy to notice. The wallet stayed there, half buried under a thin layer of snow, waiting for someone to pick it up. An hour later, a man named David walked by. His clothes were old and worn, and his beard had grown thick from the cold nights he spent on the streets. He had been living without a home for nearly 2 years. Every morning he wandered around downtown, collecting cans or odd jobs from kind shop owners who sometimes gave him a sandwich or a few dollars. He was used to being ignored. People passed by him every day without a glance. That morning his stomach was empty, and his hands were freezing inside torn gloves. As he walked past the cafe, he noticed something lying near the bench. He bent down slowly, his fingers stiff from the cold, and picked it up. It was a brown leather wallet. For a moment he just stared at it, unsure whether to open it or leave it where it was. His mind raced. He knew what was inside could change his next few days. He hesitated, but then gently opened it. Inside there were several credit cards, a driver's license, and a small photo of a smiling family. He found a folded $100 bill and a few 20s tucked behind it. His heart beat faster. For a man who had been sleeping on park benches and skipping meals, this was more money than he had seen in weeks. He sat down on the bench, holding the wallet in his hands. The cold wind brushed against his face as he thought about what to do. One part of him whispered that no one would ever know if he kept it. He could buy food, a warm blanket, maybe even pay for a cheap motel room for a night. Another part of him, the one that had kept him honest all his life, told him that it wasn't his to take. David sighed deeply. He looked at the photo again, at the smiling faces inside, and he imagined the panic that woman would feel when she realized her wallet was gone. He closed it carefully and stood up. His stomach growled, but he ignored it. He decided he would find a way to return it. He walked several blocks to the nearest police station. The snow made his shoes wet and his feet ached. When he finally reached the station, he hesitated at the door, feeling out of place among the clean floors and busy officers. A receptionist behind the desk looked up as he entered. "Can I help you, sir?" she asked politely, but with the kind of tone people often use when they don't expect good news. David nodded and placed the wallet on the counter. "I found this near the cafe down on West Street," he said quietly. "Someone must have dropped it." The woman blinked in surprise. "You found it and brought it here?" "Yes, ma'am. I thought it should get back to the person who lost it," he said, rubbing his hands together nervously. She opened the wallet, checked the ID, and smiled. "Thank you. We'll contact the owner right away." David nodded, ready to leave. He didn't wait for thanks, didn't ask for anything. He just turned and walked back out into the cold, his breath visible in the air. Later that evening, Lily sat at her desk in the office, buried in work when her phone rang. She picked it up absent-mindedly, still typing as she answered. "Hello? Is this Lily Carter?" A woman's voice asked from the other end. "Yes, it is," Lily replied. "This is the police department." "We have your wallet." "Someone found it and turned it in today." Lily froze. "My wallet? Oh my God, I didn't even realize I'd lost it." She quickly grabbed her bag and coat, thanked the officer, and rushed out of the office. The city lights had started to glow as she made her way to the station. Inside, she was greeted by the same receptionist David had spoken to earlier. The woman handed her the wallet with a small smile. "You're lucky," she said. "A man found this and brought it in." Lily opened it, her eyes widening when she saw that nothing was missing. Not a single dollar had been taken. She felt an odd wave of guilt. She had probably walked past people like him every day without really seeing them. Did he leave his name? Lily asked. The receptionist shook her head. No, he just said he found it near the cafe and wanted to make sure it got back to you. That night, Lily couldn't stop thinking about the man who had returned her wallet. She imagined what kind of person would walk all the way to the police station in freezing weather, just to return something he could have easily kept. She wished she could thank him in person. The next morning, she went back to the cafe hoping to spot him. She looked around near the benches, scanning every face that passed. Hours went by and she saw nothing. But just as she was about to give up, she noticed a man sitting quietly near the corner, warming his hands over a cup of coffee that looked like it had been given to him by someone kind. She walked closer, her heart pounding. His clothes were the same kind she had imagined, worn but clean enough to show he still cared about his dignity. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Were you the one who found a wallet near here yesterday?" David looked up, startled. "Yes, ma'am." "Was it yours?" Lily nodded, smiling. "It was." "I don't know how to thank you." He smiled back a little shyly. "No need for that. I just did what anyone should do." "Not everyone would have," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I really mean it, thank you." He shrugged, his eyes gentle but tired. "You're welcome. I'm glad you got it back." Lily reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. "Please take this," she said. "It's not much, but I want to help somehow." He shook his head. "I can't take that." "You need it more than I do." She was taken aback. "But you—" He cut her off with a small smile. "I'm all right. Just trying to get by?" Lily didn't insist. She realized that what he wanted wasn't charity. It was respect. She nodded slowly and said, "Then maybe I can buy you a proper meal instead." That time, David didn't refuse. They went into the cafe together, the same one where she had dropped her wallet. The barista recognized Lily and gave her a friendly nod. As they sat down, she noticed how David carefully wiped his hands before touching the menu, as if he didn't want to leave any dirt on it. They talked for nearly an hour. He told her small bits about his life, how he used to work in construction until the company closed, how things slowly fell apart after that, and how hard it was to find another job once you didn't have an address anymore. But he never complained. His voice carried a quiet strength that made Lily admire him deeply. When they finished eating, Lily promised she would find a way to help him get back on his feet. She didn't know how yet, but she knew she couldn't just walk away and forget him. Something about him, his honesty, his calmness, had touched her heart in a way nothing else had in a long time. As they stood outside, snow began to fall again, soft and quiet. David smiled and said, "Funny how life works, huh? You lose something and maybe it's just life's way of helping you find something else." Lily nodded, her eyes bright. "Maybe you're right." And for the first time in years, David felt seen, not as a homeless man, but as a person. And for Lily, that moment marked the beginning of a change she didn't yet understand, but she knew it had already begun. Lily couldn't stop thinking about David after that day. She had met many people in her life, but there was something about his calm nature and honesty that stayed with her. The way he refused money even when he clearly needed it said more about him than any words could. That night she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering how someone with so little could still choose to do the right thing. The next few days passed slowly. Work felt routine, her meetings dull, and the constant office chatter suddenly felt meaningless. She found herself looking out the window often, thinking about how many people like David were out there, invisible to everyone else. She decided she couldn't just move on and forget. She wanted to do something, not out of pity, but because she genuinely wanted to help someone who had helped her. On Friday evening after work, she walked back to the cafe where they had shared a meal. The cold air stung her cheeks, but she didn't care. She looked around the same corners and benches, hoping she'd spot him again. The cafe was busy, but she didn't see him anywhere. She waited for almost an hour before finally asking the barista, "Hey, do you know if the man who sometimes sits outside, tall, with a gray jacket, has been around?" The barista nodded. "Yeah, I've seen him a few times. Comes early in the mornings. Sometimes he helps clear the snow from the sidewalk for a cup of coffee." Lily smiled softly. "If you see him again, could you tell him Lily was looking for him? I'd like to talk to him." The barista nodded with a kind smile. "Sure thing." The next morning, Lily woke up early, something she rarely did on weekends. She bundled up, grabbed a thermos of coffee, and made her way back to the cafe. The streets were quiet, and the sun was still low behind the clouds. She saw a few people setting up shop displays, the world just beginning to wake up. As she turned the corner, she saw him, standing near the cafe holding a small shovel, clearing snow near the curb. For a moment, she just watched him. There was a patience in the way he moved, careful and deliberate. When she finally walked over, he looked up and smiled, a little surprised. "Morning," she said warmly. "You start your day early?" He nodded. "Gotta keep busy. Helps the time pass." She held out the thermos. "Brought you some hot coffee. I hope you don't mind." He hesitated for a second, then smiled and accepted it. "Thank you. That's very kind of you." They stood there for a while, talking as snow fell softly around them. She asked him about his days, and he told her about the odd jobs he did. Cleaning sidewalks, helping carry boxes for shop owners, sometimes watching over delivery trucks for a few dollars. He never complained once. He spoke simply, with a quiet pride, as if he had accepted life's hardships without bitterness. Lily listened, feeling a lump form in her throat. "Have you ever thought about getting back into steady work?" she asked gently. He nodded slowly. "I think about it every day, but it's hard when you don't have an address or phone number. Most places won't even let you fill out an application." She frowned. "That's not fair." He gave a small smile. "Life isn't always fair. You just keep moving." His words stayed with her. Over the next few days, she couldn't focus on much else. She started searching online for local shelters and programs that helped people like him find work. She called a few places explaining the situation, and one of them mentioned they had a small program that helped homeless individuals with job placements and temporary housing, if the person was willing to commit to it. That was all Lily needed to hear. She wrote down the address and decided to tell David about it the next time she saw him. The following weekend, she returned to the cafe again. He was there helping an elderly man move boxes into a van. When he saw her, his face lit up with that same gentle smile. "You really don't give up easily," he joked lightly. "Not when it comes to something important," she replied. "I might have found something that could help you. There's a program that helps people find jobs and a place to stay, only if you want to try." David looked at her, his eyes uncertain. "I don't know. I've tried shelters before. They're not always safe, and sometimes you end up worse off." "I understand," she said softly, "but this one's different. I spoke to them myself. They help people find work, real jobs. You'd have your own small room for a while until you can manage on your own." He looked away, thinking. The wind blew softly, carrying the sound of passing cars. After a moment, he said quietly, "You really believe I can do it?" "I don't just believe it," she said firmly. "I know you can." Her words hit him harder than she knew. It had been years since anyone had looked at him with genuine belief. For so long he had been invisible, just another face people avoided eye contact with. He nodded slowly. "All right, I'll give it a try." The next day they met outside the cafe again. Lily drove him to the shelter on the other side of town. It wasn't fancy, just a modest building with kind volunteers and warm smiles. They welcomed David, gave him a small room, and helped him fill out some basic forms. For the first time in years, he had a bed that was his, a place where he could close the door and feel safe. Over the next few weeks, Lily checked in often. Sometimes she brought him food or clothes, but more often she just visited to talk. She learned more about his past, how he once worked as a carpenter, how he lost his job when his company shut down, and how a few bad turns had left him without a home. Through it all, he never blamed anyone. One afternoon when she arrived, David greeted her with a grin she hadn't seen before. "You're not going to believe this," he said. "I got a job. A real one." Her eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "That's amazing." He laughed, a sound full of life. "There's a construction company that works with the program. They needed someone with experience. I start next week." Lily's face lit up. "See, I told you."
"I knew you could do it." He shook his head.
"You did more than that. You gave me a reason to try again." From that day, everything started to change for him. The shelter helped him save a bit of money from each paycheck. He began to regain confidence, shaving regularly, buying a clean shirt, even cutting his hair. Each week, he looked more like the man he used to be. Lily often watched from a distance, proud of him, but careful not to make him feel like he owed her anything. She didn't help because she wanted credit. She helped because she believed in kindness. the kind that changes both lives, not just one. As months passed, David moved out of the shelter into a small shared apartment. It wasn't much, a single room with a tiny kitchen, but to him, it felt like heaven. He started to rebuild his life piece by piece. Every time he looked around his room, he thought about the moment he had found that wallet and how that one decision to return it had changed everything. One evening, Lily visited him after work. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. They sat outside his building sharing takeout from the cafe where they had first met. "I still can't believe how far you've come," Lily said with a smile. He looked thoughtful. "You know, sometimes I think about that wallet. If I had kept it, maybe I'd have eaten for a few days. But that's all it would have been. A few days. Instead, I got my life back," she nodded slowly. "Sometimes doing the right thing feels small in the moment. But it ends up changing everything." He smiled at her, his eyes warm. "You changed everything too. I hope you know that." For a while they sat in silence, watching people walk by. Ordinary people living their busy lives. To them, it might have been just another evening. But to Lily and David, it was proof that kindness still existed. Even in the hardest places, the world around them hadn't changed much. The same cold winds, the same streets. But inside both of them, something had shifted forever. David's life had slowly begun to find a rhythm. He had a job, a small apartment, and a sense of routine he hadn't known in years. Yet every morning when he woke up, he still carried the memory of how close he had been to losing everything. He remembered the cold pavement, the wallet in his hands, and the choice he had made. A choice that had changed everything. Lily continued to be part of his life, but it wasn't in a way that felt forced. She didn't hover or try to control his path. Instead, she offered gentle guidance and small gestures of care. Some days she would drop by with warm meals or clothes for the coming week. Other days she would simply sit with him, listening as he spoke about work or the small victories in his new life. One evening, after a particularly long day at the construction site, David sat on the edge of his small couch, tired but satisfied. He had spent hours moving heavy beams and helping with repairs on a local community center. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of pride that wasn't tied to survival, but to accomplishment. Lily knocked lightly at the door, holding 2 cups of tea. "Thought you could use a break," she said, stepping inside with her warm smile. David took the cup and nodded. "Perfect timing. It's been a long day." They sat together, sipping their tea in the quiet hum of the apartment. Outside, the city moved with its usual energy. Cars honking, people chatting, the distant sound of a subway train rumbling underground. Inside, the apartment was calm, filled with the soft warmth of friendship. "You know," David said after a moment, "I still can't get over the fact that a small act, like returning a wallet, could turn someone's life around." Lily smiled. "It's strange, isn't it? One small decision can ripple through someone's entire world. And sometimes it doesn't just change one life, it changes 2. David looked at her, a shadow of curiosity in his eyes. "2?" She nodded. "I can't stop thinking about how much meeting you has changed me. I've started seeing people differently, noticing things I used to ignore and understanding that kindness is more powerful than I ever realized." David chuckled softly, shaking his head. "I guess it's mutual then. Funny how life works. You never know which small choices will matter the most." Over the next few weeks, David began to feel more confident. At work, he noticed that his colleagues respected him not just for his skill but for his dedication. Even though he was new, his steady presence and willingness to help made him reliable in their eyes. He began to imagine a future he hadn't dared to dream of before, a life where he could save money, maybe even rent a small place of his own someday. Lily, in the meantime, started talking to some friends about David's story. She didn't want attention for herself but wanted to show how someone's honesty and determination could inspire others. One of her friends, who worked with a local community organization, suggested they host a small fundraiser to help David and others like him. At first, David was hesitant. He didn't want to be seen as someone who needed charity. "I don't need a handout," he said firmly one evening. Lily shook her head. "It's not a handout. It's a chance to give back to people like you, people who have talent, determination, and just need a little support to get back on their feet. You've worked hard to get here, and this can help others do the same." After thinking it over, David agreed. He wanted to give back, to use his experience to show that no matter how far you fall, you could always find a way up. The fundraiser was small but meaningful. David shared his story, speaking honestly about the struggles he had faced and the choices that had led him to rebuild his life. People listened, some with tears in their eyes, others nodding in understanding. The event wasn't about money. It was about hope, about showing that someone who had been invisible could rise and inspire others. David felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years, and Lily, watching him speak, felt proud not just of his courage, but of the genuine human connection they had forged. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. David's life continued to improve steadily. He found small joys, making a meal in his own kitchen, buying a plant for his windowsill, receiving a compliment at work. Each small achievement reminded him that life could be better, that people could be trustworthy and kind. One rainy afternoon, as he was walking home from work, he noticed a young man sitting on the steps of a building, shivering and soaked from the rain. David's first instinct wasn't pity, it was recognition. He had been there once, cold, hungry, and ignored. Without a second thought, he approached the young man. "Hey," David said softly, "are you okay?" The man looked up, startled, and shook his head. "No, I don't know what to do." David nodded, remembering every night he had spent on the streets. "I know it's hard, but you can get through it. There are places that can help you." "Want me to show you?" The young man hesitated, then nodded slowly. David took him to the shelter where he had stayed, introducing him to the volunteers who welcomed them both warmly. He stayed with the young man until he felt safe, just like someone had once done for him. When he walked home that evening, soaked from the rain but feeling lighter than he had in years, he thought about how life had come full circle. The kindness that had been shown to him had inspired him to help others. It wasn't a burden. It was a responsibility he embraced willingly. Lily met him at the cafe the next morning. She noticed a different glow in his eyes, a quiet satisfaction that went beyond words. "You helped someone?" she asked. He nodded. "I did. And it felt right, just like it did the day I returned your wallet." She smiled softly. "I've noticed that you're not just surviving anymore. You're living and helping others live too." David looked thoughtful. "It's strange. For so long I felt like I was just existing, trying not to sink any further. But now I feel like I have a purpose. And I never imagined I'd get here." "You got here because of your choices," Lily said gently. "Not luck, not charity. You made the right decisions even when it was hard, and now you're paying it forward." They sat together, sipping coffee and watching the city move around them. People walked quickly, cars passed by, and the world continued its busy rhythm. But for them, time seemed to slow, filled with quiet understanding and a shared sense of hope. David began to realize that his story wasn't just about him. It was about everyone who struggled and needed a chance. Each step he took toward rebuilding his life was also a step toward showing others that change was possible. Over the following months, he became a quiet presence in the community. People recognized him at the cafe and on the streets, not because of his past, but because of his actions. He volunteered occasionally, helped newcomers find shelter, and shared his story when asked. His life was simple, but it was rich in ways he had never known. Lily watched all of this, sometimes amazed at the transformation. She had helped in small ways, but she realized it wasn't her doing that had changed David's life. It was his courage, honesty, and determination. He had chosen the path that few would have, and in doing so, he had inspired her and countless others around him. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, David walked along the same street where he had once been homeless. He passed the benches, the cafes, the people moving quickly past him. He felt the cold wind on his face, but this time it didn't bite. He had a warm coat, a roof over his head, and a purpose that guided him forward. He thought back to the wallet he had returned months ago, the choice that had started everything. That simple act of honesty had set a chain of events into motion, one that had given him life again, brought him friendship, and allowed him to touch the lives of others. David understood now that life was made of moments like that, small, seemingly insignificant choices that could ripple out and create something far greater than anyone could imagine. And he vowed to keep making those choices, not because he had to, but because he knew that kindness, honesty, and courage were the true measures of a person. As he turned the corner toward his apartment, he spotted Lily walking toward him carrying a bag of groceries. She smiled, and he smiled back, feeling gratitude and warmth he hadn't known for years. Together they walked, talking about small things, laughing at little jokes, sharing a quiet understanding. The city around them was busy, loud, and indifferent. But inside their small corner of the world there was peace, there was hope, and there was the proof that even in the hardest times, human goodness could shine through. And for David, every step he took from that moment forward was a reminder that a life changed by honesty and compassion was a life worth living. Fully, courageously, and with an open heart, David's life was no longer just about surviving. Each day had a rhythm, small victories and moments of quiet pride. His apartment, though modest, had started to feel like home. A small plant sat on the windowsill, catching sunlight in the mornings. A stack of books he had borrowed from the local library rested neatly on a table. For the first time in years, he could see a future. And it wasn't just a dream. It was a reality he was building with his own hands. Lily remained a constant in his life, though never in a way that felt forced or overwhelming. She visited when she could, sometimes bringing groceries, sometimes just sitting quietly and listening. She never treated him as someone who needed pity or charity. She treated him as a human being, and that, more than anything else, made a difference. One afternoon, as David returned from work, he found Lily waiting outside his apartment with a small envelope in her hand. She smiled as he approached. "Hey," she said softly, "I thought you might like this." David took the envelope, curious. Inside, he found a handwritten note from one of Lily's friends at the community organization. It was an invitation to a workshop that helped people improve their job skills and explore career opportunities. There was also a small voucher for clothing, something to help him dress professionally for interviews or work. I don't know what to say," David said, touched. "This is really kind of you." Lily shook her head. "Don't thank me. This isn't just about me. This is about giving you tools to keep moving forward. You've done all the hard work. Consider this a little extra support." Over the next few weeks, David attended the workshop. The first day, he felt nervous. Most of the people there seemed confident, already used to working in offices or trades. But as he settled into his seat and listened to the instructor, he realized he had skills that others admired. He knew how to manage tasks, handle responsibilities, and work with people. The confidence that had been buried under years of struggle slowly started to surface. The clothing voucher also made a surprising difference. David went to a local store and chose a few sets of work-appropriate clothes: sturdy shoes, clean shirts, and a jacket that fit well. When he put them on, he didn't just see the fabric. He saw a reflection of someone capable, someone ready to face the world with dignity. One morning, Lily stopped by to check on him. She found David at the kitchen table, filling out applications for jobs beyond the construction company where he currently worked. "You're really thinking big," she said. Impressed, David looked up and smiled. "I realized something. I've been afraid of trying new things for so long, thinking I wasn't good enough. But now, I feel like I can do more. I want to see how far I can go." Lily nodded, understanding the courage it took to take that step. "And you can. I believe in you." Meanwhile, David's work at the construction site continued to earn him respect. His supervisors noticed his dedication, and his colleagues appreciated his reliability. He started taking on slightly more responsibility, helping to train new workers and even managing small projects. Each success, no matter how small, reinforced his sense of self-worth. One rainy evening, after a long day at work, David returned to his apartment to find Lily waiting with a warm dinner. They ate together, sharing stories of the day. "You know," David said between bites, "I never thought I'd be sitting down and enjoying a meal like this again. Not just eating to survive, but actually enjoying it. Feeling safe, feeling like I belong." Lily smiled softly. "You do belong, and you've worked so hard to get here. I just helped you see the way." David nodded, feeling a warmth he hadn't known in years. He realized that while he had started to rebuild his life, the people around him, those who had believed in him and offered support, were part of that journey too. He wasn't alone anymore. Weeks turned into months, and David began to think about giving back. He wanted to help others who were in the position he had been in. struggling, invisible, and unsure if anyone would ever care. He spoke with Lily about starting a small initiative to assist people in finding work and temporary housing. She supported the idea wholeheartedly, helping him connect with the community organization and offering guidance when needed. Together, they organized small workshops and meetups. David shared his story openly, not as a tale of tragedy, but as proof that change was possible. His honesty, humility, and calm determination resonated with others. People who had lost hope saw a glimmer of possibility in him. One afternoon, while preparing materials for a session, David received a phone call from his supervisor. The company was expanding, and they wanted him to take on a leadership role in a new project. He was surprised and hesitant, unsure if he was ready, but he agreed to meet with the team and discuss the details. When he shared the news with Lily, her eyes lit up. "That's incredible, you've earned this, don't doubt yourself." David smiled, feeling both nervous and excited. "I guess it's time to see how far I can really go." The following weeks were challenging. Leading a team meant more responsibility, more decisions, and more pressure. But David faced each challenge with patience and determination. He communicated clearly, listened to his team, and applied everything he had learned from his own journey. Slowly, his confidence grew. He started to see himself not just as someone who had survived, but as someone who could lead, inspire, and make a difference. Lily continued to support him, attending meetings occasionally, offering advice, and celebrating successes with him. Their bond deepened, built on mutual respect and shared experiences. It wasn't friendship in the usual sense, but a connection forged through trust, understanding, and shared humanity. One evening, as they walked together after work, David reflected on how far he had come. The streets, once a place of struggle and despair, now felt different. They were filled with memories, yes, but also with opportunities and hope. He thought about the man he had been just months ago, alone, cold, and unsure of what tomorrow would bring. Now he felt a sense of stability, purpose, and possibility. "I can't believe this is my life now," he said quietly. "I never imagined I'd feel so alive, so capable." Lily smiled. "You've earned it, every bit. And it's only going to get better." David nodded, taking a deep breath of the crisp evening air. He realized that life wasn't about avoiding hardship. It was about facing challenges, making choices, and allowing kindness, both given and received, to guide you. In the following months, David continued to thrive. His leadership role expanded, and he became a respected figure both at work and in the community. He continued helping others who were struggling, offering guidance, support, and a listening ear. Each time he helped someone find their footing, he remembered the day he had found Lily's wallet and made a choice that had set his life on a new path. Lily, watching all of this, felt a quiet pride. She had been part of his journey, yes, but it was his courage, honesty, and determination that had truly shaped his transformation. She saw in him a living proof that kindness, integrity, and persistence could create real change. One evening, David hosted a small gathering at his apartment for people he had helped and those who had supported him along the way. The room was modest, but warm, filled with laughter, conversation, and shared stories. He spoke briefly, humbly, thanking everyone for their guidance, support, and trust. "This isn't just my journey," he said softly. "It's ours. Each one of you has helped me become the person I am today, and I hope I can help you or someone else in the same way someday." Applause followed, heartfelt and genuine. David looked around the room and felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He knew that his journey was ongoing, that there would be challenges ahead, but he no longer feared them. He had learned that life could change in unexpected ways, and that every small act of honesty and kindness mattered. As the evening wound down, Lily and David stepped out onto the small balcony, overlooking the city lights. The streets below were alive with movement, yet up here there was a quiet peace. "You've done more than I could have imagined," Lily said softly. David smiled, looking out over the city. "I've done it because I had help, belief, and a chance, and now I can keep going, not just for me, but for others too." The city stretched endlessly before them, full of possibilities. And for David, every light, every street, and every moment became a reminder that life, when guided by integrity and compassion, could transform in ways he had never thought possible. David had settled into a life that just months ago he would have thought impossible. His apartment was modest but warm, and each day was filled with purpose. The construction work gave him structure, and the small projects he now led made him feel capable in ways he hadn't felt in years. Yet it wasn't just work that brought him fulfillment. The community he had become part of, the people he had helped and the ones who had helped him, gave his life meaning beyond himself. One bright morning, he woke earlier than usual, not because of work, but because he had a plan. He had been thinking for days about how he could make a bigger difference for others who were struggling like he had been. He prepared a few documents, printed flyers for a community workshop, and gathered some basic supplies, notebooks, pens, and a few snacks to share. He wanted to reach out to people who had lost hope and show them that life could be rebuilt, step by step. By mid-morning, David arrived at a local community center. He had coordinated with the volunteers there, who welcomed him warmly. As he set up the space, he noticed a young man sitting quietly in the corner, head down, shivering slightly in a worn coat. The sight brought memories rushing back. Nights spent on the streets, cold and hungry, unsure if anyone cared. David walked over and offered a warm smile. "Hey, want some coffee? And maybe a seat closer to the table?" The young man looked up, surprised, and nodded slowly. David guided him to a chair, poured coffee, and offered a small snack. He realized in that moment that simple gestures could make someone feel seen and valued. It wasn't about grand acts. It was about kindness and attention, about letting someone know they mattered. As more people arrived, David shared his story. He spoke calmly, honestly, about the nights he had spent without a home, about the choices he had made, and about the man he had once been. He didn't focus on pity or hardships, but on the turning points, the moments when someone had believed in him, and the decisions that had changed his life forever. "You don't have to wait for luck," he told the group. "You can take small steps every day, look for opportunities, be honest, and never underestimate your own strength. Someone will see it, and your life can change." A few participants approached him after the session, asking questions, seeking advice, or just thanking him for sharing. One young woman in tears said, "I feel like I can try again. I thought I had lost everything, but hearing your story, it makes me believe I can keep going." David felt a warmth in his chest. Helping others had become his purpose, and he understood that his journey was not just about personal survival anymore. It was about lifting others as he had been lifted. He remembered the day he had found Lily's wallet, how he had chosen honesty when survival tempted him otherwise. That choice had started everything. Now, he was passing that moment forward, inspiring others to make choices that could transform their lives. After the workshop, he walked home, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the streets. He thought about how far he had come, from sleeping on benches invisible to the world, to standing in front of a room full of people, guiding and encouraging them. Every small step, every choice to act with integrity, had built the life he now lived. When he arrived at his apartment, Lily was waiting on the balcony, a gentle smile on her face. "How did it go?" she asked. David sank into a chair beside her. "Better than I could have imagined. Some of them were scared, unsure, but by the end they were ready to try. It felt amazing, in a way I can't explain." Lily nodded. "I'm not surprised. You've always had that in you. Even when life seemed impossible, even when no one noticed. You just needed the chance to show it." He looked at her, gratitude and humility in his eyes. "You gave me that chance. Without you believing in me, I don't know if I would have tried again. You didn't just help me. You changed how I see myself." Lily smiled softly. "I only pointed the way. The rest was yours." Weeks turned into months and David's initiatives grew. He connected with local shelters, businesses, and volunteers. Together they organized job workshops, clothing drives, and mentorship programs. Each success reminded him that life wasn't about the hardships you endured, but about the steps you took after facing them. David's own life continued to flourish. His leadership role expanded at work, and he began mentoring younger employees. He saved steadily, dreaming of one day owning a small apartment where he could live independently. Every achievement was a reminder that integrity, persistence, and human connection could overcome circumstances. One morning, as he walked to work, he noticed a familiar figure sitting on a street corner. It was a man shivering slightly with a cup in his hands. David's heart went out to him. He approached, offering a warm greeting and a cup of coffee. "Morning," David said kindly. "Do you want to come inside and warm up a bit?" The man hesitated, unsure, but eventually nodded. David guided him to a nearby cafe, ordering a warm meal. As they sat together, David shared bits of his story carefully without overwhelming him. He listened, encouraged, and reminded the man that small steps could lead to real change. By the time David walked home that evening, the city lights reflected in puddles along the street. He felt a deep sense of fulfillment. His life had been transformed, and now he had the opportunity to transform others. He realized that the day he had returned Lily's wallet was not just a single act of honesty. It had been the spark that ignited a chain reaction of change, kindness, and hope. That evening, Lily joined him on the balcony again. They watched the city move below them, people rushing to and fro, each absorbed in their own world. "You've done so much," she said softly. "I hope you know how far you've come and how many lives you've touched." David shook his head. "I only did what I could, and yet it's more than I ever imagined possible. I've learned that even the smallest decisions can matter, that honesty, kindness, and courage can change everything." Lily smiled, looking at him with quiet pride. "You've proven that, and you've inspired me too. You've reminded me that it's never too late to make a difference for someone else or for yourself." David nodded. "It's strange, isn't it? How one small act in returning a wallet could set all of this in motion. If I hadn't made that choice, none of this would exist." "Sometimes life works in ways we don't understand," Lily said. "But it shows us that goodness is always worth choosing even when it's hard." David felt a sense of peace he hadn't known for years. The streets, once harsh and indifferent, now seemed full of possibilities. Every corner, every passerby, every small act of kindness could ripple outward, creating changes that no one could predict. He thought about the people he had helped, the friends he had made, and the life he had rebuilt. Over the next few years, David continued to grow, both personally and professionally. He moved into a slightly larger apartment, decorated it with small touches that made it feel like home. He maintained his job, mentoring and guiding others while still taking on challenging projects. And he never stopped reaching out to those in need, showing them that even in the darkest moments, hope and kindness could prevail. Lily remained a steady presence in his life, but their connection was no longer defined by the initial circumstances. They were friends, partners in helping others, and witnesses to the profound impact of small choices. Together they celebrated successes, comforted each other during challenges, and worked to make the community a better place. One quiet evening, as they walked through the streets, David looked around and thought about how far he had come. He remembered the cold pavement, the wallet in his hands, the decision he had made to do what was right. That moment had changed everything, not just for him, but for the people he now helped, for Lily, and for the countless others who would be inspired by his journey. He realized that life was not about wealth, possessions, or comfort. It was about integrity, courage, and the connections we forge. It was about choosing to do what was right, even when it was hard. And it was about the ripple effect, how one honest act could grow into something far larger than anyone could imagine. David smiled, feeling the weight of gratitude and purpose in his heart. The world around him continued its busy rhythm, but he had found his place in it, a place of hope, of action, and of compassion. And he knew that as long as he chose to keep moving forward, helping others and living with honesty, every day could be a new beginning, and not just for him, but for anyone willing to embrace kindness and courage. In that moment, with the city lights reflecting off the streets and the wind carrying a gentle calm, David understood something profound. Life had given him a second chance, and he was determined to use it fully. To live with purpose, to help others, and to honor the simple, powerful choice he had made months ago. the choice to return a wallet, to do the right thing, and to trust that goodness could prevail. And with that understanding, he stepped forward into the night, ready for whatever the future held, knowing that his life and the lives of others had been forever changed by one small act of honesty and kindness.